An Easter weekend bonanza of football left Reading fans glued to the edge of their sofas on both Good Friday and Easter Monday as playoff rivals Barnsley and then Derby took on the Royals in two, well, you'd have to say two pretty thrilling encounters, which took 4 points, or which gave Reading 4 points at the end of the weekend and left them exactly where they began it, in sixth place. Probably an outcome that many of us would have taken at the beginning, but there's certainly plenty of thrills and spills along the way. And welcome to the Tilehurst End episode 259 with your host, Marc Mayo, as we exit the international break, where hopefully you listened in to our chat to Phil Parkinson and our chat on the 10th anniversary of the Tilehurst End website being founded. So a couple of international break goodies for you there. And now we're back into the big business of the run-in. And now we have just the 7 games to go, just 6 games to go even, for Reading's final games of the championship season, and to discuss a massive weekend in the annals of Reading season history. Olly Allen, the Tilehurst End assistant editor. How's it going, mate?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. I've got my breath back, got my voice back after cheering 3 goals for the first time in what feels like quite a long time. But yeah, all the better for 3 points.
And the view from the Dolan as well, or the view certainly from the edge of his sofa this weekend. Ben Thomas, how are you, mate?
Yeah, well, actually, I've been roaming around the house watching the games this weekend. So yeah, sofa, bedroom, all sorts. So yeah, be good to get into it.
Yeah, to be fair, that's the best way of dealing with this sort of situation. Certainly working from home, just move around the house. If you want to watch a Reading game from the toilet or the bathroom or something, sometimes that's probably the best option. Certainly with some of the mishaps that have been going on this weekend. So let's go in then and do the recap for Barnsley and Derby.
Come rain or shine, it's time to relive the latest match action with the recap.
This podcast is sponsored by ZCZ Films, Reading's oldest ultras.
So these were 2 very different games of football, really. I think that you've got the Derby game. We're recording this straight after that 3-1 win for Reading, a team that came and sat off Reading, certainly for the start. As the game develops, Reading asked to have more of the ball and everything like that. And then you've got an absolute sharp contrast. And the Barnsley game on Friday ended 1-1. Really just such a unique team, Barnsley. And you don't have to be a football purist to find something to find out of the Derby game or the Barnsley game. But I think the Barnsley game in particular was such a rough and ready affair. And I wonder, with the with the 1-1 draw and then coming off that, Ollie, and going into taking the win on Monday, comparing the 2 games, did we look better against Derby? Did we look like we'd kind of taken the lessons from the last few weeks, where we were looking a little bit shaky, and then getting the win back in the bag after, was it 4 championship games without a win going into this game?
Yeah, I think it's probably tough to sort of say whether, which game we looked better in. Obviously, we got the result and we performed seemingly a lot better in the Derby game. But, you have to say that Derby are a worse team than Barnes. The league table says as much, and the games said as much as well. I think certainly the Derby game suited Reading more. I think they did find it very difficult against Barnsley's press on Friday. As you say, a very sort of unique game, and I was immensely impressed by Barnsley on Friday, and you could tell why they've got to where they are. It was a very rough game, as you say. It was a sort of game that someone like Liam Moore thrives in, but perhaps someone like Michael Olly sort of goes into his shell a little bit. So yeah, it wasn't really our sort of game on Friday, and I thought we did well to get a point out of it. There wasn't an awful lot between the 2 teams, and you could see that in the table. So yeah, I think 4 points from 2 is I'm happy with that. I think, as you say, we are still 6th. It is out of our hands now, with Bournemouth's game in hand to come. But look, I think Friday for me was that there was a lot of talk that Friday was a must-win game, and I disagreed with that slightly. I think it was definitely a must-not lose. In the fact, that obviously if we lost the game, then Barnsley would have, got even more of an advantage over us. So it was definitely a must not lose, and we did that. I'm sure we'll get onto it, but there's the agony of Lucas Shaw's miss, and that does make it slightly painful that we had that golden chance to win it. But I think all in all, I was happy enough with a point. I suppose we'll have to see come the end of the season whether if we'd won that game, then it might have put us into the top 6. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But I think today was definitely the must win, because we've got these. Well, before today we had these 3 games against Derby, against Luton, and Huddersfield to come, and obviously the rest are the tough ones, the ones against Swansea, Watford, Norwich, Cardiff. But it's, I think for me, it's these games against the sides that we should be beating, against sides that perhaps we haven't got results against in recent weeks. We've lost to Wickham, to Birmingham. We dropped points against Nottingham Forest. So for me, it had to be these games now that if we're going to get into the top 6, the rest of the games against the harder teams will be tight, tense battles. But we have to make a statement in these sorts of games. And to be fair, we did that today, and I thought we looked very, very good against Derby. Certainly grew into the game, and the goal on half time came at the perfect time, really. And then sort of really took it and ran in the second half, and looked a bit shaky towards the end. But luckily, Zhao came on and got the 3rd goal. So yeah, I think overall very happy with 4 points from 2 games.
Yeah, that thing of Lucas Zhao, the complete contrast from the end of the Barnsley game to the end of the Derby game. We'll get onto that a little bit later, but let's talk about Ben, that Derby game. As I say, the first half, Reading had 65.5% of the ball in the first half against Derby. Only had 1 shot in that. But, I suppose the old saying of if you're patient and you wait and that sort of mantra of, the good times will come. And certainly 45 plus 3 minutes, I think it was, when Michael Elise scored what was just an absolute banger.
Yeah, I mean, I think just going back to that point about the Barnsley and the Derby game, I don't think there was any real difference in performance, to be honest. I think it's very difficult to separate how we performed in both games. Obviously, one we get a draw, one we get a win. But in terms of the application of the players, it was kind of there or thereabouts in both games, really. I think with today, it was a brilliant time to score. I don't feel at that point we deserved it, really. I don't think we were as direct as we could have been. Loose passes, the kind of the urgency seemed to be lacking a little bit, whereas the first half in the Barnsley game, it kind of was there. But then, second half today, different side came out, obviously had the confidence. And, I've said time and again, and you guys have said time and again on the podcast, that when we score the first goal, that gives us the confidence. Up until that point, we don't seem to be, certainly recently, particularly confident in taking it to the team. So, I mean, there were times in the game when we were excellent, I thought, today. Times when again those kind of concentration lapses creep in. I think Puskás scoring is a really positive thing, not just for him but for the team. I think Zhao coming on scoring is fantastic for him personally as well. So today was definitely a must win. I think had we not got maximum points, it would have been game over, really. We can only beat what we've got in front. I think that Derby made it difficult at times. They scored a very good goal. I felt Lawrence had too much space for that goal. I think we switched off after we should have had the penalty from Mato. But the 3 points is all that matters. And at this stage of the season, that's all we're looking for now, really, just to keep winning the next game. We've got an incredibly difficult run in, as Olly's already alluded to. And this will help in that process. But overall, there was some bright sparks. Raphael was fantastic. Holmes, for me, was superb as well. A couple of players were quite quiet. I know that he scored, but Elise generally was quite quiet in the way that he built up the attacking play. So, there were lots of positives to take out, but it's a quick turnaround to Friday. A very, very difficult game next game, and we'll see what he does with the team selection there.
Yeah, as you say, George Puskás getting the second goal, is on the bench against Barnsley, came in to replace Lucas Zhao. Tom Holmes was brought on in the first half against Barnsley because Michael Morrison injured. Morrison remained out for the Derby game. Tom McIntyre's also still out, so the injury problems are kind of not really getting any better. I think McIntyre's out for the season as well. And then from 2-0, I think, from Reading's point of view, Ollie, was there a sense that Reading were particularly comfortable at that stage? Does it need to be that comfortable? Derby had already had their best chance in Kazim Richards in the first half. I think he hit the post, and then Raphael produced a couple of good saves. From that, Reading only having to concede or only conceding from a long-range belter. Yes, as Ben said, the potential penalty beforehand would have taken it away, and Mayte also had a chance as well before that. So, I suppose in a way, the fact that they did get back into the game, Derby, is it actually something to be worried about?
I don't know what something to be worried about. I think certainly when we were 2-0 up, I felt quite comfortable, to be honest. And the goal did come from nothing really. Obviously it came, with Reading having straight down the other end, having what I thought was a blatant penalty when Yaki Mayte was brought down, and obviously Derby go up the other end and score. So yeah, it's a tricky one because were Reading perhaps sort of shaken by the fact that the penalty wasn't given. To be honest with you, I was so fuming that Mayte hadn't been given a penalty that I didn't quite see the goal on first glance. I had to watch the replay and look. It's a hell of a strike. I think sometimes it's a strike like that almost you can't really compensate for, really, because Tom Lawrence has probably had about 10 shots today, and all of them, apart from that one, have gone, massively wide. I remember him dragging one, almost to the corner flag about 5 minutes before his goal, and then he just unleashes that. And look, he's a, fairly talented player. He's got that in his locker, but as I say, you can't really compensate for a goal like that. And as you say, Raphael's, made a couple of decent saves before that, but it's not as if sort of Derby were knocking on that door and the goal was deserved or it was coming or whatever. Reading looked fairly comfortable. They could have got a third. Mayte had a big chance before that. Probably should have put it away to make it 3-0. If John Moss gives the penalty, then that's a chance for 3-0. So I don't think it's particularly anything to worry about. And even the fact that when they did go, it did come back to 2-1, that Reading did respond so quickly, and that it was Lucas Shaw the man to get it. And, that was put to bed, very quickly, because, if it was 2-1 going into those final 5 minutes, then, it's going to be a very, very nervy sort of final 5 minutes plus stoppage time indeed. But the fact that we got that third goal almost straight away sort of put nerves at rest a little bit, and in the end it was a fairly comfortable and a fairly deserved win, I think.
Yeah, that Lucas Shaw goal, I think it was his first touch coming off the bench, Lucas Shaw, and having been dropped, I think that I was going to ask the question, what do we do with Zhao? But I suppose it still is a factor, really, because that's the Derby game, the 3-1 win. The Barnsley game, everyone knows what happened in the Barnsley game, that at 1-1, Ovie Ejaria with the opener, penalty to level it up, and then in the second half, it's a really good watch, I think, certainly as a neutral, for the scrappy, all out, all action nature of it that both teams are putting in. And then the chance comes from a massive mistake. Yaku Mayte knocks it back to Lucas Shaw, misses an open goal. There were no mitigating factors. It's not, the wind didn't change. There's no minor earthquakes or anything like that. It was just like a really poor miss, sadly. So that led us to the situation that I think dropping him was the right thing to do. Puskas comes in, starts, scores. Ben, if you're George Puskas, you've come in, you've started, you've scored, and you've got your rival for the front spot, if you like, not doing very well. You're thinking, right, here we go. Next few weeks, just give Puskas the start and let him have that and build up some form, and just say to Zhao, you know what, you've had your chance, but it's not just the miss, but for the previous few weeks, he's not been brilliant, and he's on the bench now. But then Zhao goes and scores with his first touch off the bench. So what do you do now? Do you keep on with Puskas or what?
You have to feel sorry for George a little bit, really, don't you, today? Because he, exactly as you said, he's come on and he's thinking, right, okay, this is my game. I'm gonna get one. I'm gonna try and get two. I'm just gonna be direct, hassle. Get in the box and create opportunities for myself and take them when they come. But obviously he does that, and then Zhao comes on and scores again. This has been going on for a while with Zhao. This is not a new thing, and probably you could say all the way back to Wigan game, this kind of I wouldn't say a decline, but his blip in form, shall we say, started. I'm not going to talk too much about Jow here because Olly's done that superbly this week with a cracking article, I have to say. There you go, Olly. There's your plug. You can plug me next time. Yeah, no worries. But it is a great article because it does sum it up superbly well. And me personally, I would have benched Jow today. Because this is not like, you've missed an open goal. If he'd been scoring in the games up to that point and missed it, he'd go, it's a freak. Never mind, get on with it. And I think Jow would have just looked at it like that as well. But I have never seen a player as dejected as Jow was in that game. If it wasn't sort of as public as it was, which I know sounds a bit ridiculous, but you would have just taken him off because he just looked desperate to not be on that pitch. And I don't blame him at all, really. It was just a desperate situation, and you have to score those, really. I think dropping him was the right thing to do today. In terms of the game on Friday, I would probably stick with Puskas because he seemed to hassle a lot more than Jow has done over the last couple of weeks. I think with Puskas, he doesn't seem to tire. He's back fit. He's getting back to his best. He scored a poacher's goal because he was there today. But Jow scoring is going to do wonders for him personally as well. So it's a nice position to be in. Sort of 3 days later from the horror show on Friday, because actually you're going into a game now against a very good side on Friday. You've got two strikers that have just scored. One from a starting point, one from a bench position, and so. I think realistically, you do have to stick with Puskas. That would be my suggestion, unless, of course, he wants to completely change it and play the two of them together. I don't know, but me at the moment, I would choose Puskas over Jow, definitely.
Yeah, I think just for a brief look towards Watford, I would have to stick with Puskas as well, just because on two fronts. But firstly, Jow, the super sub, good, you've got one goal off the bench, go and do it again if you really want to start. And that's the sort of mantra you can choose to use with Jow if you want. And also, Watford are a very mean defensive side. They're not going to give you loads of chances. I think they've got the best defensive record in the league. Just check. Yep, they have. So we're not going to be absolutely dominating this game, I don't think, having loads of chances. And maybe that would suit Puskas running them deep, running as hard as he can for the first 75 minutes, then Jow coming off the bench with a bit of fresh legs. Maybe that's a game plan we can use. Olly, would you go Puskas to start or Jow for Watford?
Just quickly, I will plug Ben's view from the Dolan if anybody wants to go and read that after.
It's getting difficult. I'll tell you what, not being in the stadium is getting really hard to write that column, but I'm still plugging on with it anyway. So
I'm still thoroughly enjoying it week after week. So yeah, definitely go and check that one out after, I'm sure, the next day or so. It's tough. I think in terms of what I would do might differ too. I actually think Paunovic might bring Lucas Jow back in. I would agree that I would probably stick with George Puskas, but something tells me that Paunovic might bring Lucas Jow back in, which is very harsh on George Puskas because look, now his last 4 starts now have yielded 2 goals and an assist for him, which is a fairly decent return in the form that Reading have been in. But yeah, something tells me that he might just bring Lucas Jow back in. I mentioned it in the piece that Ben was talking about, that I think the Paunovic has a very, very good relationship with Lucas Jow. We've heard that a lot from various sources this season, and sort of a lot of people have said that João's good season has been mainly down to sort of the way that Veljko Paunovic has managed him. And I just think that he might have sort of dropped into the bench today, sort of said to him, go on and get a goal, and you'll get your place in the starting 11 back on Friday. And I think that might be what he does. But yeah, I wouldn't play 2 strikers. I think that's probably perhaps a little bit too expansive against a Watford side who will be able to, who will hurt Reading going forward. So I think he'll stick with the one. But I would play Puskas, but I think Paunovic might just bring João back in. Yeah,
there's a piece in the Coaches Tribune, I think it is, or the one where the coaches write their own articles basically and give you kind of the coach's voice. That's it, and give their own insight, without the kind of Q&A style. They'll just write the piece themselves basically. And in that, Paunovic did a piece a few weeks or months ago, and he said that the 2 players when he came in that were the most talented or the ones he recognised. I think one was Elise and the other one he mentioned was Zhao, which was interesting because, yes, we all know Lucas Zhao's a good footballer, but at the start of this season, you probably wouldn't have named him in the top 2 most talented players in that squad that a manager's going to look at and go, wow, I have to build a team around him. So I think you're absolutely right to point out that I mean, Paunovic he's shown time and time again, he's done everything he can to get Lucas Zhao on that football field. And yeah, maybe he'll do it on Friday. Quick word on the Barnsley game. We kind of mentioned it at the top of the show. I would have to say, the question I'm going to ask off of this is, now we've played Barnsley, do we feel as if they are the biggest threat to our playoff position or not? Because we kind of played them at their own game. I think we did really well at that. We've not got the squad that's necessarily built for it. We've got Ajaru and Elise in it. They're not, 20 out of 20 work rate players in Football Manager standings. They're not massively physical. And yet I think they did all right. Coming out of the point certainly could have been better. But for me, seeing how we did against them perhaps kind of reduced my fear of Barnsley a little bit. It gives other teams a bit of a template maybe that if you do try and play them at their own game, Ben, maybe you can get something out of it. And, they've obviously gone and beaten Luton since, and they've got a decent run in. So that might just mean that the quality of teams they face is enough to get them through. But having watched the Barnsley game, would you say that they are the team that we should be looking to knock out of the playoffs, or do you think that it should maybe be Swansea or Bournemouth, maybe?
I think with Barnsley, I don't rate Barnsley for the pure reason that I don't think that they will be able to sustain that style of football, whichever division they're in next year. I think the difficulty is that they have Barnsley have got a great record against teams in the lower side of the table, and that is basically what their run-in consists of. I haven't got it in front of me, but from what I remember, their run-in is predominantly against teams that are lower down the table, and that is going to be the issue, really. I think, although the draw says otherwise, and why I was so frustrated on Friday is that we are better than Barnsley in almost every department on our day, and that was why getting the draw was so frustrating, really. With Bournemouth, I don't think we are. I think, in terms of the kind of the experience and the quality that they do have, although they've not really hit their stride at all this year, I still think because they've got the game in hand, Bournemouth are the ones that we really need to keep an eye on. That said, I would quite happily knock anyone out of the playoffs as long as we were in there, really. I was looking at the table before I came on, and I'm very, very surprised that Cardiff have dropped kind of as low as they have in terms of points away from the playoffs. So I would, without cursing it, I think they are probably too far out of the picture now, really. And it is going to be a kind of 3-horse race for that last spot. Swansea are on a horrific run at the moment. I think they've lost 3 or 4 in a row now.
Yeah, 4 now.
3 or 4. And that's really poor. That is the wrong time to be doing that. And I don't feel sorry for any other team, really, but Steve Cooper is an excellent coach. And I hope he goes on to bigger things, really. But, from our point of view, we just have to keep winning the games. And the only thing that concerns me is our running, because, starting on Friday, as we'll talk about later on, Watford are just a nightmare to play against. And they're really obviously going for the automatic spot. So it's going to be very, very difficult. But I think it really does come down to the running that the teams have got. And looking at what Barnsley have got, I just think that they will be in the mix, really. So I in short, I don't know is what I'm saying to you, but I really, really hope that because we've been there consistently throughout the season that we will get there. Who it is, who we knock out, not at all bothered.
No, it is that the Swansea 4 defeats in a row is it's the hope that kills you with these sort of things, isn't it? Brentford have also drawn 3 in a row, but then they've got 2 games in hand on us and a 3-point gap, so not really something you can focus on. Swansea's running. Their game in hand is against Sheffield Wednesday, which isn't too helpful for us. They've also got Wickham, Millwall and QPR, who aren't doing, neither here nor there, and then Derby and Watford on the final day of the season, as well as ourselves. So, yeah, it is the run-ins that I think we're all going to focus on for now. Olly, for yourself and for Barnsley and Friday's game, is there a sense that is it Barnsley, Swansea, or Bournemouth for you that you think are the best bets to miss out?
Well, if you're asking for my honest opinion on who's the best bet to miss out, I would probably say us. Unfortunately, yeah. Just as Ben said, just on sort of the run-ins. Look, I think Swansea, as you say, are falling like a stone, really. But I think I back sort of that squad to recover. The only question mark, really, I think a lot of people have over Swansea is sort of where the goals are coming from. I don't think they've scored, so they haven't scored in something like over 400 minutes now, which is a staggering stat. And they've not really got a clear number 9. I think Jamal Lowe's not scored in a long while. Andre Ayew's a decent player, but he's not an out and out number 9. And the American they brought in on loan, Morris, I think, is out for the season. So there are question marks sort of over all of the teams. I'll try and get some, if there are any Barnsley fans still listening after Ben just thrashed them, essentially.
It's not that. I just, fair play to them. I love seeing those teams that if we'd have said coming into this season that Good Friday, Barnsley and Reading was a top of the table clash for playoffs, then no, this time last year, no one would have believed you at all. And that's being said. But, I don't want Barnsley, if there are people listening from Barnsley, that I don't hate you. I just, I'd much rather that I just think we're better than you. And I know I can't back that up with the score this year, but I just don't think you're going to sustain it. So sorry, Barnsley, sorry, Valerian. I do apologise, but good luck next season.
Yeah, fair point. I think for me, probably I've got more question marks over Bournemouth. I don't rate Jonathan Woodgate at all, really, if I'm totally honest. And probably it's difficult with both both. I've just combined the two of them together there. Both Barnsley and Bournemouth. I don't particularly. There aren't names in Barnsley's squad that particularly stand out at you. I know Will on our editors group chat the other day sort of said he didn't recognise any of the Barnsley squad aside from sort of Corley Woodrow and Alex Moa, and you have to say that you look at that squad and there aren't too many sort of standout names in there, and sort of you compare that to the Bournemouth squad and it's packed with sort of names that you recognise, but then you look at Barnsley, who sort of worked together superbly as a team. The system that they've got, as I say, the press was remarkable on Friday after. So I was staggered by sort of the intensity and how they kept it up throughout the game. And as I say, Reading really sort of struggled against it. So it's difficult because they both have their qualities. I think Barnsley, as a team, as a collective, are one of the strongest sides in the division, and sort of the way the club is run. And Valerian Ismail coming in to replace Gerhard Struber, who was immensely popular there. And sort of to keep them on the trajectory that they are on has been magnificent. And then you look at Bournemouth, who I don't think have really sort of got a clear sort of way of playing or sort of clear plan. As I say, I don't particularly rate Jonathan Woodgate, but then they've got some immense players in there. Dominic Solanke on his day should be playing in the Premier League. Jack Wilshere's had his injury problems, but is a quality player in their midfield, and Begovic in goal. Is an immensely experienced keeper. So it is really tough, and there are some difficult, sort of questions to answer, I suppose. But I agree. I think Cardiff are probably too far behind, and I think they'll drop more points than Reading, Barnsley, or Bournemouth will between now and the end of the season. So it's 3 from 2, and I suppose I'll end where I started, really, in saying that probably if it is going to be 2 from 3, 2 out of Barnsley, Bournemouth, and Reading. I hate to say it, but looking at the run-ins, I have to say Barnsley and Bournemouth will make it, and Reading will drop out.
Mark, I've trashed Barnsley. Ollie's just done Bournemouth. Is there any playoff team that you want to trash?
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? I'd say Bournemouth are the one I'm most worried about because of their Premier League quality that you've just kind of gone through. Yes, they can win the next 2 games and then lose the next 4 or next 5 after that because of their mental stability, not stability, but their mental strength is probably their downfall. And as you say, their manager's not too good. I mean, if we've looked at Barnsley and Bournemouth's weakness, Swansea's weakness, 45 goals in 39 games is not enough, and they've actually started to lose the defence in the last few weeks as well. Obviously, losing at home to Preston today. These aren't brilliant teams that are beating them. So that's probably I would say that potentially Swansea are the team that we can be looking at, and pretty much as well because we play Swansea. If we beat Swansea in a few weeks, then that's a huge that basically knocks out their game in hand. Depending, they'll have done it by then, but that's the 3-point gap that we've got to them. So there's hope, and there's reasons to be optimistic and reasons to be pessimistic with all of them. So let's, in that case, draw a line on the fact that we don't know yet, and that it's going to be a really fascinating, thrilling watch. So hopefully Reading are going to be in the thick of it with the games we've got to play. So let's go on then and go into the mailbag and hear what you have to say this week.
For all the latest Reading news, analysis and opinion, visit the website at thetilehurstend.com.
So, as we're recording this immediately after the Derby game, we've got a few questions in on the Twitter. If you want to send in those questions for the mailbag, you've got the Facebook, the Twitter, and the tilehurstend@gmail.com for the email. Let's start then with Andy Halls, who he says, what does Pauno do for Watford? Stick with Pusky or recall Zhao? I think we've kind of covered that. The only other thing perhaps we haven't mentioned yet is Yaku Mate in where he fits into that. And what I was going to say before the Zhao goal, Ben, is the possibility, is it with Puskas, maybe is it better putting Mate up front? You can have him with Puskas or without Puskas, but is he someone that we maybe want to try and move into that mix, or are we happy with him as a winger now? And given, that we can probably put Elisa on the flank, is he someone that we really need to think about at the moment with the Zhao and Puskas both scoring?
Well, I think the thing is, he can do both. But for me, Mate on the wing, one of the first names on the team sheet, really. I mean, I've said before, but I absolutely love him as a player and a personality. He just doesn't stop. And I think there's been a lot of talk this week about, Swift coming back. And again, I'm a huge John Swift fan. I think he's an excellent player. And again, he walks straight into the team when he's fit. But with Mate, I think at the time that he was injured, we just missed him hugely. I thought he was very bright again today, really. Very, very good in the Barnsley game too. So I would personally leave him on the wing and let him just crack on with what he's doing over there. It is going to be difficult in terms of team selection. I think he just needs to see how they shape up in the week, see if there's any more knocks or anything else. If Swift is available for Friday night, that's a huge boost for us as well. But with Mate, I would leave him exactly where he is, because that he can cut inside and make things happen. So yeah, I would definitely leave him where he is.
Yeah, and I suppose to answer Andy's question directly, I think as we've said, I think we all kind of would stick with Puskas ourselves, but there is that feeling that Paunovic will turn back to Zhao, as he's clearly a big fan of him, and rightly so, really. Callum's saying, here's one to think about while I kind of flounder around with an answer off the top of my head. He says, are Andy Winnemotto and Andy Yiadom the best on-field combination with the same first name for Reading in recent years? Well, annoyingly, I could immediately think of the best on-field combination with the same second name, which is obviously Noel Hunt and Stephen Hunt. But the best combination with the same first name, Olly, have you got anyone that leaps out to you for that?
I'm trying to think. I mean, probably not ones that top Andy Yiadom and Andy Winnemotto. Obviously, you got the two Toms in defence, McIntyre and Holmes. I know the question is on field, but they also seem to have a very good off field combination. If you've seen many of Tom McIntyre's TikToks, they're very good. I'd highly recommend those. Just trying to think. John Swift and John Daddy Bodvarsson, different spellings of John. And again, perhaps not quite with the same effectiveness as Winnemotto and Yiadom, but was it 2 years ago possibly that both of those were sort of very much the heart of Reading's attacking diamond. The fact that Bodvarsson was our go-to player says a lot about where the squad was 2 years ago. But yeah, off the top of my head, those are the only two that I can think of.
Yeah.
What about Adam Lafondra and Adam Federici? Same team?
Yeah, we'll definitely take that up. Yeah. There's quite a few players with slightly similar names, i.e. J-Tab and Jim A. Kebe, if you want to say it wrong.
That's very, very tenuous. Very tenuous.
Jem and Jimmy, if you want to throw that together as well. I mean, Alex Pearce and Alex McCarthy, that was a nice little academy duo, wasn't it?
That's nice. I like that one.
Credit that one to Wikipedia, as I'm currently frantically scrolling through various different seasons of Reading history. But I think if anyone can come up with some better ones for that, then
that's a great question, though. That's a really good. That's got me thinking. I'm going Jason Roberts and Jason someone else. No, that's not going to work.
I'm sure
Ian
somewhere
Hart
there's an absolutely golden combination somewhere.
Could we have Brian and Brynja as a kind of like sort of coaching role / playing role? Would that work?
Well, Brynja is surely the Icelandic version of Brian, I would imagine.
True. Yeah.
I mean, we had Yap and Joey. That's kind of almost similar for the Yap Stam and Joe Vandenberg. Sadly, no one has no Ali's played with Ali Al-Habsi that year because that'd have been quite nice.
What about Steve Sidwell and Stephen Hunt? Not quite, well, almost, but
yeah. So near yet so far with that one.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's pretty much all I've got.
Yeah, no, I think we'll have to. Otherwise, this is going to be a thrilling podcast of people Googling frantically while people are just listening to us out on dog walks and stuff, which might not work so well. So yeah, definitely send those in to the tilehurstend@gmail.com and the Twitter and Facebook, and we'll check up on the comments, and if there's some good ones, we'll bring them in for next week's show. But yeah, I think I've just about hit a brick wall with those ones there. Michael Elise and Michael Morrison. There's the final one to end on. That's a avowed spine of the team duo. So let's go on then to the final question of the week. And Ross Webber looking ahead saying, how many points do we need from the 3 games with Watford, Swansea and Norwich to stay in the hunt? Well, it is Watford next up, which we'll be looking at in a bit more detail in Big Match Preview. But those 3 games together, I mean, the thing is that all of those games have kind of good and bad things for Reading, don't they? So Norwich and Watford, particularly Norwich, which will probably play once they have been promoted. I think by then it's the penultimate game of the season. So they really should have been done by then. But the fact that they'll have been promoted means that we should, in theory, be thinking that they'll take their foot off the pedal, whether mentally or physically or whatever. That gives us more of a chance. Obviously, they might feel no pressure and whop us, but okay. And then Watford again, they're on a brilliant winning streak, but these winning streaks can only go so far. Teams have to lose games at some point. So there's no reason it can't be us. But again, they're a good team. Swansea, they've lost 4 in a row. Teams can't lose every game. They've got to bounce back at some point. They've got a good chance to do that in the next few weeks before they play us. Arguably, Ollie, if I offered you the opportunity to play Swansea on Friday and Watford in a few weeks, that might actually be a little bit better.
Yeah, quite possibly. I'd probably, I reckon I might take 4 points from those 3 games. I think I'd be happy with that. But then look, again, it just sort of depends on what Barnsley and Bournemouth do. If we can get 4 points from those 3 games, and then beat Cardiff, Huddersfield, and Luton, that would give us 13 points from the final 6 games and take us on to 76 points, which you would normally say, is it 36 or is it 79? 79. Sorry, yeah, which you would normally say would sort of guarantee you a top 6 spot. But you look at the table as it is at the moment, and you look at the running for all of these teams, and you think that actually, I think it was 70 points last season that Swansea finished 6th with, and it's going to take considerably more than that this season. I mean, with the fact that Reading are only 4 points off that total with 6 games still to play, I think sort of tells the whole story of the whole season. I'm not saying it's been a poor quality championship this season, but you look at, I think it's probably going to take, I would say, at least 75 points to get into the playoffs this season. It might even be more than that. You might even be looking closer to 80. So, yeah, it's all sort of going to depend. I think it's going to change week by week, isn't it? I think, and we sort of are as you are, or as you were, sorry, before today's kickoff, and it's just going to be a case of every single weekend. It's just going to be nervously looking at how Barnsley, Bournemouth, and as we say, Swansea getting dragged into it now, how all of they're getting on, and it's just got to be a case of, I will happily take getting into the playoffs on goal difference over one of those teams, just as long as we get into that top 6. As I said, in terms of getting the win today against Derby, it's got to be the games against the other teams that we have to win, against Luton, against Huddersfield, and you have to say, I suppose, Cardiff now. I've just seen, I think, are losing 1-0 to Sheffield Wednesday at the moment. You have to say we have to be winning those 3 games. I agree. Hopefully Norwich will be up by the time we play them in the penultimate game. I'd imagine they must be. They need a couple more points or wins now. And Watford. I think Watford is going to be the toughest game out of all of them on Friday. That Swansea game might end up being a massive opportunity for us if they carry on the way they're going. So, yeah, I think we just have to sort of take it game by game. But to give an answer to the question, how many points we need from those 3 games, I'd be happy with 4. I think.
I think 5 myself, because if you can stay unbeaten in all of those games. I mean, Ben, would you take 3 points, 3 draws, or do you think ultimately, we have to come out of one of those games with 3 points, or at least one of them?
I think we've got to win at least one of those games, for sure. It's tough, isn't it? Because if we were sat here now and went, we're going to draw all of those games, that's probably not a bad return based on those teams, really. I think your point about swapping the fixtures around and playing Swansea on Friday is a really interesting one and a great one, because 100% you play Swansea now, but this league is just relentless and it's so competitive. And we talked a lot about Barnsley in this podcast, but think about where they were this time last year. Think about where we were this time last year in terms of our style and our league position and everything else. And there are 2 teams in there that probably at the start of the season no one would have said in their right mind would be there. So anything without sounding like a Jerry Anderson cartoon, anything can happen really in the next 6 games. And I think that realistically we need to be getting at least 4, maybe 5 points out of it. I don't think 3 will be enough, and purely because of the run-ins that the other teams have got around us, really. And that's the problem, and that's why when the season is dissected, wherever we end, we'd look back on those games against Wycombe, QPR, probably Birmingham as well, and say, look, that's 9 points that we'd be home and dry. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be nail biting, and I'm not sure at the moment I'm completely up for that. But we haven't got any choices, Reading fans, have we? So we just have to get on with it and see where we end up. But it's going to be interesting. It's going to be exciting, and I would much rather take where we are now in terms of fighting at the right end than we've done in the last sort of 3 or 4 seasons, really. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? I think ultimately, if let's say we do get 9 points out of those 3 games, if we then don't make it into the playoffs, then I'll be pretty unhappy. Let's put it that way. Just a quick look. I had a quick look across the last few seasons for the playoffs. This season's probably most similar to 16-17. Reading were 3rd that year with 85 points. Wouldn't be too much for a spicy Brentford get to that total, or Swansea in 3rd. Fulham finished in 6th with 80 points that year, 22 wins, which is only 3 more than Reading have. They drew a lot more games though. So yeah, I think I think 80 points might just be the barrier that Reading need to hit, which is 14 points from 6 games. That's 4 wins and 2 draws, I think, isn't it? So if that's what it takes, then it just depends if the rivals, if one of them drops off, then I think we've got obviously a much better chance. So I think we'll go on to the Watford game and look ahead to Friday in just a second, but let's have a little stop off at the Newsbites and look around the club, see how they've been getting on this week.
Be loud and be proud and back the boys and make some noise. Come on, you R's!
Shout out to this week's podcast sponsor, ZCZ Films, showing that age is no barrier to being a hula hoop.
It was a 5-0 defeat for the women last time out. Bit of a disappointment against West Ham. They'd held on for a tight 1-0 defeat to Man City before that. They're kind of stuck in mid-table. 4 wins from 19 all season. Not a brilliant amount of victories, obviously, but there it is. Spurs in the FA Cup on Sunday the 18th. A good FA Cup run will certainly make Reading's season into something to remember for the women. The under-23s lost 2-0 to Sunderland. Last time out, they faced Middlesbrough on Friday and are 6th in a pretty tight-looking Premier League 2, so a good chance for them to get up the table in the last few weeks. I think they've got a game in hand. And the under-18s, they lost 4-3 to Arsenal a couple of weeks ago, and then they beat Leicester 4-3 on Saturday. So they're 10th in the table. Leicester actually 2-0 up early on in that. Harvey Mordaunt and Jamari Clark getting Reading back into it. Leicester then retook the lead. Mordner again scoring. Louis Holzman with the winner for the defender there. So good little win for Reading away to Leicester in the under-18s. Big game for the senior men's team on Friday night against Watford. Let's go and talk about that now.
There's another huge game ahead for the Royals, so be loud and be proud for the big match preview.
Okay then, so I remember the last big match preview we did was about a huge game on Sky on Friday night against a team in the top 5. Now we've got another. Second place Watford, Friday 7:45pm on Sky Sports. Friday the 9th of April, that is. And, well, who knows what's going to happen in this one. Watford drew 1-1 with the Middlesbrough on Monday. Looked like a pretty dodgy goal they kind of scored. I think it's a late-ish equaliser in that one. Neil Warnock absolutely fuming, although that's not really a headline. Actually, no, they took the lead. It's Middlesbrough late equaliser. But Neil Warnock fuming with that, again, as I say, not really a headline that he was fuming. But actually, fun little fact, it meant that Watford did not overtake Reading as the team who has enjoyed the most league wins over a Neil Warnock team. So Watford and Reading are joint top with 17 wins over Neil Warnock in the league. That's the most of any team. So a nice little stat that Reading have held on to there as a bit of a record. But, you know, Watford are going to be a huge challenge, aren't they, Ben? This is a team that we thought probably 6 or 7 weeks ago were just going to be in the playoff mix. They've been not too far away from Reading for most of the season, not been too impressive, but they've just launched on recently and they're scoring goals. They're not conceding them. Tough game.
Yeah, and I think what's quite incredible about Watford is that they seem to change their manager every couple of months and they still do all right, really. So, yeah, I mean, it's not the game that anyone would be wanting right now. And I can imagine that building up to Friday, there's going to be a lot of nerves in the fan base, really, and rightly so, because, yeah, Norwich will probably win the league. But the run that Watford have been on is fantastic, and they're kind of everything that you would want from a team getting out of this division, really. They've got goals in them. They've got some talented players. They've got a lot of experience. They don't concede, as you said, and it's going to be very, very difficult. The other concern for me is that it's my birthday on Monday, and we always lose either on my birthday or on my birthday. So being selfish for a minute, although I'm not sure that they kind of base their form around how old I turn and stuff like that. But I just feel like it's going to be very difficult to get anything out of the game. You know, obviously, good result today will give us the confidence that we need, but it's going to be an incredibly tough experience for those players. It's going to be a good learning curve, but it's kind of one of those games that you look at and go, okay, well, based on our running, I don't think any running fan would be disappointed if we lost that. I'm not saying that I'm expecting that to happen, but you know, it's not the game that you want right now. And considering that the other teams around us are going to be playing lesser opposition, it could be a bit of a stressful weekend coming up for us as Reading fans, I think.
Well, just before, I just noticed that Sheffield Wednesday are now 3-0 up against Cardiff as we're recording this. So that's maybe that does mean we can tick off another team from the list. But yeah, I think, Ollie, the good thing that Reading can consider about this is that we beat Watford early in the season. We gave Norwich a good game. We've given Brentford one of the good games out of the two we played them. Got a good point against Swansea. We've got a good point away to Barnsley recently, and we've beaten them. We've beaten Bournemouth and given them a good game in the other tie. We've beaten Cardiff. We've liked games against teams high up in the division. We have raised our game for them. And, you know, at the very least, this is a game that we can 100% expect to be competitive in this game. And from then on, it's just you need, you know, Reading. I can't think of many times this season Reading have had a deflection go in off a really bad performance to save us a game, or a penalty decision go our way that was maybe a bit questionable. We haven't had those sort of things. But if we're competitive against Watford, if we go and play a good game, you just need one of those things to fall for us, and then that can be the win.
Yeah, 100%. And look, I don't doubt this team's ability to get themselves up for a game. I think we saw on Friday against Barnsley, both during the game in the way that they fought and the way that they stood up to the challenge that Barnsley presented, and after the game in the way that they were so deflated. And if you watched Liam Moore's interview after the game, just absolutely gutted that they hadn't got the win. I've got no doubts that this team, care enough, or if they've got enough fight in them. I'm confident that that they will go to Watford on Friday and that they will and they will give as good as they get. And then, as you say, it comes down to luck and perhaps, I suppose, quality. And I think we said it right at the start of the season when Watford came down that this Watford squad is just far too good to be playing Championship football. And you see it sometimes. We saw it with Stoke a few years ago that teams come down with a lot of quality in their squad and they just can't adapt to the Championship at all, but Watford have really sort of shown their class, especially as you say in the last few weeks. They seem to have. I think we played them very early in the campaign, sort of the third or fourth game, and they were probably still sort of finding their feet, and sort of Vladimir Ivic was still sort of working out how to get these players to play together, and it obviously didn't quite work out for him in the end. But Xisco Munoz has come in and. Yeah, their recent run has been incredible. I think he changed systems sort of 2 or 3 months ago. They were playing 4-4-2 at the start of the season, and they've gone to 4-3-3 now, and it's just sort of clicked massively for them. And you can just reel off the names in their side. Ismail Assar, scored a hat-trick against Liverpool this time last year, and he's one of the best players in the division. Nat Chalobah. Will Hughes, João Pedro, Kiko Femeni at right back. The quality in that side is just immense, really. And it's going to be a very, very difficult test for Reading on Friday. I say now that I would take a point. I know there's a lot of Reading fans who will see it as the end of the world if we don't win on Friday. But I think you have to be realistic. We don't need to. Well, I say we don't need to win every game between now and the end of the season. It'd obviously be nice, but I think you have to be sort of realistic with the expectations. Looking at the other fixtures, Bournemouth play Coventry, so you probably say that the Bournemouth will get 3 points there. The big one for me is Barnsley against Middlesbrough. That's massive. We saw, as you say, Middlesbrough today take a point off Watford. They themselves will probably are probably out of the playoff mix at this point, but they're a Neil Warnock side. They gave Reading a very good test and obviously beat us a few weeks ago, and they're not going to be an easy test for Barnsley. So yeah, I would hope that perhaps Barnsley drop points in that game, and it makes any sort of either defeat or loss for Reading not so bad. But then I suppose at the same time, if Barnsley drop points, it's a great chance for us. And obviously playing on the Friday night, we play before any of the other teams, so I suppose it is an opportunity for Reading if they can get a point or even touch words, hopefully try and get a win. They put pressure on the teams going into Saturday. If Barnsley know that Reading have overtaken them on that Friday night, the pressure is going to be massively on them to get something from their game against Middlesbrough. So it's, as I say, it's going to be a very, very tough game, but I do think we will at the very least compete.
Right, then let's do some predictions to round off the show. Westy picks up a 1-1 draw in the Barnsley game, so he's moving towards, actually he's taken the lead now in the league. With Olly, you get a 0-0 for that game as well, so point there. I think Westy's had 2 correct scores and a result in the last few weeks, so he's now on 26 points. Myself and Handbags on 25, Olly 23, Sim on 20. Everyone took a point for the Derby win apart from myself. I took the bullet by saying we get a draw in that one, which kind of almost came to fruition. So I'm going to lead off this one then, and I am going to say 1-1 because we have done, as I say, pretty well against these sort of teams, these sort of occasions. And Watford, they can't win every game, can they? So Olly, what are you going to say for this one?
It's annoying. First of all, I think I said 1-1 for the Barnsley game on the podcast 2 weeks ago, and then when you asked me on the morning of the game, I changed my mind and went 0-0.
Yeah, I think I said 2-2.
Slightly annoying. Yeah, and then I went 3-0 today, thinking, we're going to get a really confidence boosting win today, and it nearly did happen. Apart from a Tom Lawrence thunderbolt, so As I say, I think it's going to be. I think this game will be the toughest out of our final 6, on the basis that hopefully Norwich will have taken their foot off the gas by the time we play them. I do think it's going to be very, very difficult. So I'm going to say a narrow defeat. I'm going to go for a 1-0 Watford win.
What do you think, Ben?
I agree with Ollie. Really, I think we'll compete. I think they will show a lot of fight, but I just think that Watford will have too much quality for us, really. So I'm going 2-1 Watford.
And there we have it. Then it's going to be such an interesting game on Friday. Really one that Reading fans are going to go into with a certain degree of trepidation, I think, and just that little bit of fear. But it only takes an early goal or something, or, as I say, a bit of a bounce of the ball to go for us, and who knows what might happen. This has been episode 259 of the Tilehurst End Podcast, and it's been a really interesting weekend of football for Reading. Certainly, we basically ended it where we started it. So I suppose in a way that's good enough, because we're still in 6th place. But thanks, Ollie, for popping on this week.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go and watch Cardiff carry on getting battered against Sheffield Wednesday.
That sounds like a plan, Ben. Thank you very much as well.
Absolute pleasure. No problem at all, Mark. And
we shall be back. Hopefully we'll be able to do Saturday after the Watford game. Friday night on the telly. It's Friday night on the telly just before the pubs open. So there are no excuses for missing this one. A really good opportunity for Reading as well to cement their place in the playoffs against Watford on Friday. A huge game in the Championship and another big occasion for the Royals to be involved in. Let's savour it and hope it goes our way this time. Thank you very much for listening. Come on, your arse.
You smile, funny how the crowds always